Hello and welcome back, you beautiful people, to episode 1 of a new show that we're calling Off Meta. A show where we look through the tier list on MarvelSnapZone.com. We figure out what we can do to beat the best decks of the week, and then we build that deck. I hope you enjoy. Before we get into it, just a quick heads up, this tier list did come out right as, I don't know exactly before or after, but the same day as the Sandman change. So while in the future I will be more quick to record and release these videos, this one, because of the fact that something changed fairly drastically, I would take maybe with a slightly larger grain of salt than normal. So all that being said, if you find this content elucidating, enlightening, and enriching, the best way to let me know is with a subscribe. We are shooting for 1 million. You can help us get that number. You know, join the Discord, all those things. I appreciate everyone who does them. I appreciate anyone who watches. We hit 10,000 total views the other day, and I was like, I was floored. I can't believe 10,000 people have listened to me spew nonsense for as long as I have. Thank you so much. Okay, so to get into it, we're going to start. We have here, this is MarvelSnapZone.com/tier list. It is updated every Tuesday, I believe, because that's like technically patch day, though often we don't actually get patches because like they don't really need to change anything very often. And we can see here the top 3 decks are, I think, what you would expect. If we're being honest, I think the top 3 are what you would expect. So I've already looked through them. We're going to look together. The number 1 deck of tier 1 is Lockjaw Thanos. It's a great idea, right? It's a wonderful strategy. Like, if you're playing Thanos anyway, and you have the jet, you don't see, there's 6 more cards in this list, the Infinity Stones. Each of them has a minor effect and draws you a card, and they are 1 cost. So Quinjet makes them a 0 cost. Lockjaw means that you can trade them for, at random, some other thing. And the thing that really makes this deck a beating is that they have Leech, and they can random into a Leech and like ruin, because the way to beat a deck like this is to play tech that beats it, and Leech has the ability to just remove that tech from your arsenal, but they can also random into it early and you can draw your tech after. So that's something. It is quite a beating getting leeched on 5, knowing that you kind of had the win on 6 because you had the tech to beat them, but we're gonna think about that in how we play, okay? So pin that one. Lockjaw Thanos, probably the number 1 of tier 1. All right, after that, we have Zabu Darkhawk, another deck that you almost assuredly like recognize. If you're into tier 3, you've probably seen and been beaten by this. It's probably going to be even more popular because I believe did Darkhawk drop? Yeah, pool 4. Okay, so Darkhawk was pool 5 and is now pool 4. So and Agent Coulson is now pool 3. So this deck is going to be around more. Like, you're going to see more of this. And if it's still a good deck after Darkhawk got nerfed by exactly 1 power, which seems so silly, you know, be ready for a deck like this. I'll say this list, like, while it's created by, I see this person Den all the time, like on this website. I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're like a streamer or something, but they really, really seem to not like tech cards. They like, oh. They really, like, they're playing Sentinel. Sentinel's a great card. But, like, I don't know how you could not play, like, Cosmo or Armor in this deck. And, you know, if this person's, like, getting success with this exact list, like, power to them. But we are going to, I hope that people follow this list exactly, because we have ways of dealing with this list. We'd have a harder time if it had Armor or Cosmo. And then the third tier 1 list is a Shuri 0. Again, you've almost certainly seen like a list like this. I've built a list like this for people in Discord. The only thing you might not normally see is Sarin, because this is again, this is a pool 5 card. In general, how I play is that I do not play around pool 5 cards. Like, I just don't. I don't think it's worth it. That means that the obvious exclusion to that rule is the Thanos deck, because they're playing the Infinity Stones right away. Like, you know that you're playing against the Thanos deck pretty early, but like, you know, a deck like this, I mean, if they Sauron on 3, like, okay, like they Sauron on 3, they don't really have time to deploy it later, right? It's only good on 3, and it didn't really change your play patterns. It just gave something away about what they're going to be doing later on. But in general, like, this list is probably the one that's going to be hardest to deal with, because they're much more likely to play something to protect some of their stuff, like Invisible Woman or Cosmo or Armor, because Sauron's so rare. So again, we prefer that they play this list sort of exactly, but the likelihood of that happening is pretty low because of the rarity of Sauron, so we're probably going to see something different, okay? So, all that being said and seen and whatever, what are we going to do about it? Here it is. Here's the list I've come up with. So, we already talked about how, you know, they're not playing Armor. They're not playing Cosmo in general, right? And there's quite a few 1-drops. We saw, obviously, all the stones. We had Titania and Ebony Maw in the Shuri list. And we had Sunspot in the other. Sunspot's it's still a great hit if we're going to Killmonger, but it's like the least good. But even just Killmonger, just killing Sunspot, fine. Like, you're fine with that. What else do we see? Well, we saw a lot of stuff that they want to play that costs 4 and 5 and 6. So Goose is great. Goose honestly shines like a lot more. Like, I don't see people playing Goose. Goose might have, maybe should have made the list for top 5 cards you should be playing that you aren't right now. But also I don't play Goose enough, so I couldn't in good conscience recommend playing them. And then we have it's weird, right? Because we have Shang, Enchantress. Both of these, obviously, Shang hits the Shuri deck, but it also hits the Devil Dino Darkhawk, right? But also, Enchantress hits Devil Dino and Darkhawk. Enchantress also hits the stones, the Infinity Stones. Some of them have ongoings, which are good. And finally, Enchantress is great because if your opponent does wisen up and play Armor, it doesn't get around Cosmo. We're going to be clear about that. If an opponent plays Cosmo, your Enchantress or your Shang doesn't help. But if they do play like an Armor, Enchantress gets rid of the Armor. It's something. It's some kind of an out, right? So we're playing both because both are good. But both are 4 costs, and we're playing Goose. D. You stupid bitch. Why would you do that? Well, because they cost 4. So Zabu, if we have Zabu, reduces their cost down to 3 so we can get them in under Goose if we have to for whatever reason. But also, we're playing Sarah. And Sarah reduces everything in this deck down under Goose cost. When you play Sarah, you don't generally want to run 1s. We don't really want to run 1s anyway because we have Killmonger. If you don't... Sorry, I'm shortcutting here. If you don't know why that is, because Sarah can't reduce the cost down to less than 1. So 1 costs actually don't get a cost reduction at all. So they stay the same. Statistically, kind of the best cards are like 2s in general, because they're halved. Like, it's the biggest reduction in cost. But, 4s that go down to 3s so they can sneak in under a Goose are great. Zabu, having already reduced the 4s down to 3s, and then Sarah putting them down to 2s, right? Being able to do like a Shang and Enchantress plus like Polaris and Killmonger all in one turn. Pretty good. The other thing is that because we're playing Killmonger and so many like people aren't playing Armor, the only ones we want are the ones that can get destroyed for value by a Killmonger, which is Hood and Nova. We might... There's there's a non-zero chance I'm going to swap Rescue out for Carnage, but I really like being able to hide Rescue under Goose, right? So you go like turn 2 Zabu, turn 3 Rescue, turn 4 Goose into that lane, and now Rescue is a 9 that can't get shanged because unless your opponent's playing Zabu or Sarah, which is like, I don't know. I really like that. The other thing is like Goose can't really get Enchantress again unless your opponent is playing Zabu, because if they're playing Sarah, it just doesn't matter. Like, yeah, you can Enchantress Goose on turn 6, go for it. But so this has so. Oh, and then the final piece. I mean, obviously Scorpion's just kind of good. The exact Shuri list is not so bad. Again, like the Black Panther list is a little worse to Scorpion. It's a little like softer to getting Scorpioned because it kind of counts for more to like Scorpion a Black Panther. But if it's the Shuri list, it kind of just doesn't matter anyway. Like if they're Shuriing something up to 60 or 30 power, like a Red Skull, it doesn't matter if it's like 28 instead of 30. Just hardly matters. It might, but we're not really putting 28 power in a lane, so it doesn't really. But the good thing is if you suss out your opponent trying to play an Arnim Zola, you can Polaris for like an additional just chance that they Zola the 2-drop that you pull instead of the 5-drop, which is another something. The other thing is that Polaris is just nice as like a way to mess up, you know, for 2 mana on the last turn with Sarah out, being able to like free up your Lizard or like mess up the math on a lane they thought they had, being able to kind of guarantee what you're going to pull by going Killmonger into Polaris, right? So you're like, okay, they have a 1 and a 2. So we'll Killmonger first, get rid of that 1, then we'll Polaris, and the only 2 they have left will get pulled. And if it, you know, if you're pulling it to the lane where the 1 was, you know there's going to be a spot because like you cleared the spot yourself to make sure of it. So that's it. That's how I would beat. This is what the other thing to keep in mind is these are tier 1 decks, and you might not be playing against them. And the reality is, I'm doing this video because if you feel like you're struggling against those decks, and like, you know, you're kind of, you feel like you're getting out-moneyed, because I know that's like a pretty common feeling in this game. Whether that's completely accurate or not, it is a very common way to feel. And I don't like feeling that way either. So this is meant as a way for you to feel like you have an out to those types of decks. Like if you feel like your opponents have just dropped like $1 million and you're like, you're chilling in like, you know, the mid 40 ranks and you're like, this sucks. Like these decks are supposed to be up at like, you know, rank 600. Why am I getting them now? This sucks. Here's your chance. Like here's an out. Here's a way to combat those specific tier 1 decks. Now, the other thing is that you have to be really willing to engage with your micro meta, and you might not see any of those decks. Like there are days where I just don't see a Shuri list basically all day. And you have to be willing to change it up, right? Even at different times of the day, you're going to find different people playing and you know, different lists, and you're gonna start you play enough, you're gonna just like keep rotating through the same like 5 or 6 opponents at if it's like really dead for the server. And just take everything I've said with a grain of salt. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to join the Discord and ask me directly. I really genuinely love helping people to understand the game, the meta, the micro meta that you find yourself stuck in. Navigating all of it brings me so much joy. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this content elucidating, enlightening, or enriching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you all tomorrow.